Hello, here are my reflections for the readings on the 21st Sunday after Pentecost, particularly around that quote from the Old Testament, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, am holy." Holy. It's quite hard to be good. It's normal to prefer the company of people like yourself, successful in the ways you're successful. It's quite hard to be non-judging, and hard not to recount how someone did you wrong, or how your cousin Fred did something really stupid. And the pain of that conflict that made you vow never to speak to Joan again, you can't let go of that. You can't help yourself from telling someone that they did it wrongly. But all of that is encapsulated here. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the whole congregation of the people of Israel and say to them, 'You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. You shall not render an unjust judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor and defer to the great. With justice you shall judge your neighbor. I am the Lord. You shall not hate in your heart any one of your kin. You shall reprove your neighbor, or you will incur guilt yourself. And you shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against any of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." It seems very far away in Bible times to Moses, but it's very much alive in us all. My mother, when she was deteriorating in health, I visited my parents. My mother had dementia and was living in their small house together, and there was a great deal of difficulty and stress as her illness went further on, and my father, who was not good at coping, was having extreme difficulty. I had this terrible falling out, and we did not speak for a long, long while, my father and I. We disagreed strongly about things which we were not good at being able to articulate. My righteous anger that I was right and he was wrong seemed to justify my choices. However, and there is always a however, and it always matters more than you think. However, my mother, my sister, and my father all carried the pain of my righteous anger, and I carried a stone in my heart that I would not look at. You shall not hate in your heart any one of your kin. I felt like I had broken away, like a lump of rock breaking off a mountain, and tumbling, rolling far away, but I was, and still am, sitting on the ground under which are the roots of that same mountain. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. What does it mean to be holy? Holiness is often thought of as well-washed young men and women walking slowly with carefully downcast eyes and their heads slightly to one side in a monastic garden. But the teaching of holiness given here is located in the bumpy, imperfect world of family and village and island life. Holiness is not attained in a distant retreat center or a convent. It is found in the midst of your family, of your workplace, in your relationship with your neighbors, and in your church if you're lucky enough to have one. Churches particularly exist to bring people into the presence of God. We do this with carefully crafted words of worship and hymns and prayers. We do it with symbolism of a shared meal and of communal gathering. A church service can only happen when there is more than one person. You can't have a Eucharist alone. We do this with the exchange of the peace. And much of this is hampered by COVID rules at the moment, I'm afraid to say. But churches are oddly good places to practice holiness. It's very hard to practice holiness when you're alone at home. In church, you get to know people and see their obvious good sides. And then you can notice each person's less good side. And then, if you care to go further, you can learn their broken and painful, damaged places of soul. And you can begin to love them, not because they are lovely only, but because they need love, because they are human like you, and you need love too. And later you might discover that your apparent okayness is not actually quite as perfect as you imagined. You may slowly let the Holy Spirit show you that you are not the near-perfect person you sometimes imagine yourself to be. Perhaps you're actually not even terribly nice. And you may begin to glimpse that your fearfulness, your guilts and shames, small as they are, can easily be seen by others. And that they still treat you with warmth and love, compassion, forgiveness, healing and hope. I returned to see my mother about a year later. For me, it had been a horrible year of refusing to admit that I had any wrongness in my decision and actions. Slowly, God led me to see that my self-righteousness was a cover-up for the growing pain of a broken relationship. I slipped into my mother's presence in the nursing home. She knew me, and her dementia, though not insignificant, had not erased her. We held hands and talked. And then my father entered. He changed at the sight of me, like a thundercloud descending, he changed. We did not speak to or really acknowledge each other, but as I left, I asked if I could come to his home to talk to him the next day. My sister, with whom I was staying, grace-filled, helped oil the wheels of transportation and location and my anxiety. My father and I met and over quite some time found a way to friendship. We went on to deepen that into love and trust. Neither of us knew the path we needed to find, but we found our way, I think, with God's unfelt hand guiding and my sister's quiet strength supporting. This is a story of holiness lost and holiness refound. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, am holy. So my point in all this is that holiness is not distant, reserved for nuns and monks, but is actually the fabric in which we can live our lives well. And the absence of it is the drafty threads of self-deception and the holding of bitter grudges and unfaith in others. When you read the commandments, they do seem far away and about someone else. And when you hear a commandment to be holy, it can seem to be about someone else. But these teachings, these commands, these assembly instructions for human life are actually for us. Not just to stop God from being mad at us, but to let God smile upon us when we begin to live gracious, which means grace-filled lives. Holy lives, not because of a halo, but because of making open-hearted decisions through which the Holy Spirit of God can flow with blessings, very small and hardly perceptible blessings, but grace and happiness nonetheless. May you be holy, for the Lord your God is holy.